I'm muted. What's up, y'all? Okay, how we doing? Got a new setup here. If you can't tell, got my DSLR up there. I figured out how to do that. Ordered one of them capture cards is what they call them. I'm if you have been seeing the last few streams, you know that I'm still pretty new at this. So we're gonna see how it goes. I've also got some uh, cool new features. So I got rid of the chat in the side, and instead I have this little pop up thing. Let's see if I can get it to work. There we go. There's my chat. So rather than just being inundated with the chat at all times, we're gonna use that to highlight so whoever has some things to say. But yeah, okay. So today I want to talk about data centers. Hot topic right now. No pun intended. Um, there's a lot. There's a lot that needs to be said about data centers because, well, most people know. Most people know what's going on. Most people get it. Most people know it's a sham. It's killing communities. It's poisoning the environment. It's lining the pockets of billionaires. But a lot of people want you to forget that and want you to think you're crazy. Hold on, I'm just gonna adjust this camera. Okay, that it'll fix itself in a minute. um, but first off, I wanted to give you guys some updates. What's up, Maddie? How we all doing? Maddie and Austin, welcome to the chat. I did have a couple updates on the channel, some exciting updates actually that I can fill you in on. So number one, this is top secret, so nobody starts spilling the beans quite yet. But if you guys remember Brian Merchant from the video that I did on the Luddites and destroying the machines and surveillance, he is actually making a podcast called Blood in the Machine, and I'm going to be producing it. So that is sort of what I've been spending a lot of time on this week. So all that to say, it's basically going to be like a sort of weekly tech news roundup with a critical lens. And then we're going to use the second half of the show to interview like organizers or people on the ground, fighting back against data centers or journalists. Is the stream quiet? Let's see if I can adjust the gain, actually. Let's see. Is that any better? Yeah, last time also apparently the stream, the videos that I was playing were super loud, and my voice was very quiet. So let me know if that if that is continuing. Anyways, yeah. So I'm going to be doing that in the coming foreseeable future. I was finally able to quit the part-time job that I was doing for the past almost a year now. Since I got back from Hong Kong, I've been fucking driving delivery and for Jimmy John's. It was fine. I had a lot of time to listen to podcasts, so I am actually gonna miss that. I'm gonna have to figure out a new time that I can, I guess, house chores and stuff that I can listen to my podcasts. And yeah, so that's the big update. And then I'm gonna obviously continue with the channel. I mean, I'm going to probably do some experimenting with some shorter videos, things that I can pump out a little more quickly because, I'm working on that video about smart glasses, which some of you probably have seen me posting about. That should probably be done in the next week or two, probably the next week. But it's already been almost 2 months since my last video, and that's not really that's not really feasible to continue with. So yeah, all that to say, just expect some new things coming your way. I've got some more time on my hands now, and Yeah, excited to get started. So let's talk about data centers. So the reason I wanted to make this, I was considering making an entire video, and maybe I will eventually. But there's this project. Oh, let me share my screen. So this is from the Salt Lake Tribune. There's a project from Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank fame, also known as Mr. Wonderful, also known as an asshole. So he was the guy that was in the Safdie movie. What was it? Marty Supreme. Apparently he was the villain, and I saw like the Safdie brothers were talking about how he was perfect for the role because he's just an asshole. He was like the tycoon. I haven't actually seen the movie. I would like to, but so he is a developer. He has a lot of different ventures, but one of the big things that he's been getting into lately is data centers. So he actually, I came across this, I believe it was from Breaking Points, the like news show, and they played a clip from Tucker Carlson's interview with him. So we're gonna watch some of that because I think it's a really perfect jumping off point to talk about like all of the misinformation and all of the propaganda that these people are pushing on you. And importantly, you know, Tucker Carlson, obviously not a fan. He's a grifter. We all know this, but he also is like capturing the energy of how people feel about data centers in a way that not very many people on the left, at least like in the political establishment, are. You know, Bernie and AOC have that data center moratorium bill, but it's not really getting a lot of traction. And I am a little worried that we're gonna see like the right wing grift economy start to capture some of this anti-tech backlash, and that sucks. So we've got several things to go over. Especially one thing I want to talk about is this Jacobin article, which is quite lazy. It's basically, well, we'll get to it, but it's basically saying that the data center moratorium is ultimately bad for the working class and bad for like the global poor. And it makes some really confounding arguments. And I especially want to talk about it because like Jacobin magazine, I don't know if you all are readers of it, but it's probably one of, if not the most influential socialist magazine. And it's a little, I mean, like, look, I'm not going to be judging based on one article, one opinion piece at that, but it is a little disappointing to see like the laziness of this argument. But anyways, let's start with this Tucker Carlson video, and we can see how it goes from there.
Largest data center in Utah, face of exactly the time.
Okay.
Flash Tucker, we are proud to partner with Preborn.
Oh God.
So we thought now is
I don't even want to know what that sponsorship was.
exactly the time to talk to, I don't know the guy managing it exactly, but certainly the face of the world's largest data center in Utah. And that'd be Kevin O'Leary, who is famous to people who watch cable television as one of the hosts for many years of Shark Tank. Also, as you'll find out in a minute, an enormously nice guy, genial guy. Maybe that's why he's out explaining what the data center is, because it's pretty hard to dislike him personally.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I feel like everything I've seen from this guy, it makes me hate him. He's the epitome of this like hyper capitalist society we live in, and he just seems like a real asshole. So I'm just gonna disagree with you there on Tucker. And as I said, we have to make sure we remember that Tucker Carlson is doing a grift right now. He doesn't give a shit about the issues that he brings up. He doesn't care about surveillance. You know, he is capturing the zeitgeist of people not being happy with data centers. And he's going to like supposedly debate Kevin O'Leary and dispel some of his really terrible arguments. But just remember, he is a grifter. So don't. I feel I need to preface this by saying we're going to agree with Tucker on some things here, but we're not going to give him any props.
But as you watch this interview with the guy who's in charge of the world's largest data center, watch carefully and listen. Are any of the questions being answered? Does he know the answers? Does he care about the answers? Watch. Kevin O'Leary, thank you so much for doing this. How did you, I read, first I just want to check the facts here, but I read that you are building the world's largest data center in Utah, 40,000 acres. If that's, how did you get into the data center business? How did this start?
I've always been in real estate, and I sort of came up in commercial real estate with climate control storage for pharmaceutical companies. Data center development is very complex, but very similar in some ways. It requires permitting. It requires dark fiber. There's only 5 tenants in the world. You know them all: Amazon, Google, etc., Microsoft. And so the thing that got me motivated, though, was watching in the last 2 years this narrative in North America about how negative data centers are. It started in Virginia, actually. The idea that they consume a lot of water, that they are very noisy, and all that's true from stuff that was built 15 years ago. But today, that's not the case. And yet the narrative kept going.
Yeah. So I'm gonna hold off on pausing like every time he lies. But we do have to remember that that's just a bald-faced lie. The issues around like noise pollution and environmental degradation, those were not. I mean, like, I don't know. There maybe the data centers 10, 15 years ago had those issues, but it's really only since they've become this like massive hyperscale, taking up huge swaths of land and displacing residents, or the ones who don't get displaced are being bullied into accepting either a bad offer for their land, or they're just going to be surrounded by data centers. And that's going to, like, we'll get into some of the noise pollution issues, because that sort of stuff actually can have some adverse health impacts. And so he's lying here. That's going to be a common theme throughout this this video.
And I thought, who's doing this? Who would not want us to have compute power? Who would not want us to build our power grid out? Because when you build a data center today, you have to develop your own power and you can sell it back to the grid. That's what we're doing in Utah. I'm thinking to myself, the Chinese, they don't want us to do that. And I went through that whole thing with TikTok, as you may recall, and I actually saw the evidence of how the Chinese were manipulating the algorithm. Now they're doing it a different way, and that just kind of pisses me off. So I'm happy to add compute. I'm like, I don't want my kids in 20 years who live in New York being told what to eat for breakfast by the Chinese. So, I'm kind of on a mission here to compete.
Okay, so the point, so you're doing this because it's a business opportunity, but also because China doesn't want you to do it. Why would China not want data centers built in the United States?
Because we're in a competition for AI compute. The nation that has the best AI models will be the winner of future wars. It'll have the most productive economy. We already know now, just looking at earnings that are coming out as we speak, Tucker, the earnings this quarter are unprecedented in terms of how good they are, because somehow, very quickly, and this is probably just serendipitous luck for this administration, AI compute is now being implemented in all 11 sectors of our economy, and it's enhancing both productivity and margin. So these companies are making a lot more money than they were anticipated to, because AI is very productive. And people debate about the job shift and everything else, but the fact is the economy is on fire, even at a time when we have conflict. So if I were the Chinese, the last thing I want in America is the 5 or 6 tech companies that are competing with me on DeepSeek having more compute capacity. I want to shut down every single proposal for every single data center in every single state and I want agitators. I want paid protesters. I want environmentalists. I want to shut it all down so that they can't train their models as fast as I can.
So yeah, the crux of his argument in this segment is data centers make me a lot of money, so therefore everybody in the U.S. should support that because it's propping up the economy, which it is. However, it's not producing, wealth for everybody. Obviously, the 6 hyperscalers or the 6 AI companies, the big six technology companies are the ones seeing the majority of the profits. We all know this. So he's kind of like conflating this thing where, earnings by companies are not measures of overall societal health. But he wouldn't know that exactly. All these people are so out of touch. Like, another thing that has made me laugh in the past week is these graduation speakers who have got booed by students because they just like come in with these grand claims about AI, the AI revolution, and students are acutely aware, students and young people, of the actual future, like what that actually looks like for them. It means no jobs. It means the jobs that you can find, you're getting lower pay, you're getting fewer benefits. The companies and the employers have all the leverage because, supposedly they can just eliminate your job with these AI agents. So, one thing like about AI that I think is not even that important to okay, how should I phrase this? It is important to know the capabilities, but I don't think it really impacts how people think about AI because it's a political issue, right? People are not upset because there's all these advancements with AI and automation. They're upset because the people running our society are implementing them in non-democratic and highly unequal ways. The paid protester argument, I'm not even going to engage with that. It's so obvious that the paid protester argument is a farce. But read some, like, if you are interested in like who's actually going to these things. Brian Merchant. Brian Merchant, who I'm going to be working on a podcast with. If you didn't catch that at the top of the hour, this article is quite good. I might get to this a little bit later, but it basically talks about like who is actually involved in the fights against data centers. And this is another thing we see with some of the AI boosters on the left, like that Jacobin article I mentioned earlier, talking about, it's just, affluent suburbanites or environmentalists who are pushing back on data centers, when in actuality, it's like, it's the communities and it's heavily working class people, because those are where the rural areas are, where the land is, wherever they can get cheap land. One thing I have been unable to directly encounter is, so this question is based, or comment is about like AI water usage versus agricultural water usage. And I don't really know the exact numbers, but like, it's not only that it's using a bunch of water, it's also that it's poisoning the water. So like, for instance, More Perfect Union has a video about, we can take a look at this real quick. This is a follow-up from a longer video that they did about a year ago, where they went to Mark Zucker, a Meta data center, and they basically went and talked to some residents. And
I first met Beverly and Jeff Morris a year ago. They live 400 yards from Meta's 2.5 million square foot data center campus in Morgan County, Georgia, where Trump got over 70% of the vote. Now I'm back, this time with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, to find out if one of the most progressive Democrats in the country can connect with the people being left behind by the data center boom.
Our water situation is worse. The water that we're getting into the house is worse. And we're all on wells, so when that's affected...
You'll see it on the map
Yeah.
inside. There's just this large area that is the recharge, sort of where the water is under the ground. The Morrises and their neighbors haven't had clean water from their wells since Meta construction began.
Yeah, so that's the water that's coming up from these people from their wells. So this is like, that indigenous phrase, water is life, and where that comes into play. People are obviously, one of the criticisms that we've seen about data center resistance is that it's like NIMBYism, which is like not in my backyard. That's actually one of the articles of this Jacobin piece. She says, this is Holly Buck. She's a professor of something or other at, I don't remember, somewhere in the Northeast. These efforts seek to use the power and machinery of familiar NIMBY politics, local opposition, tying up projects in red tape, and so on, to confront the multiple perceived threats of galloping energy demand, carbon emissions, and job loss. Successful moratoria will curb digital growth by starving it of the physical energy needed to train and operate AI models. Then she says, counterintuitively, the moratorium on data centers is a terrible idea, one that poses serious equity concerns. A moratorium springs from the desire to stop the concentration of wealth, but ironically, it is likely to exacerbate it. This is like one of the issues I have with this article. She doesn't ever say how that will happen. Like, how would a data center moratorium exacerbate the concentration of wealth? She kind of just says it as if it's like a fact and doesn't back it up with anything. It's a massive strategic blunder for the left, and we should think about the global justice implications and follow-on effects. What would happen if these moratoria move forward? So yeah, she goes on to talk about like how people in the global south would be left behind if the U.S. implements a data center moratorium. It really just doesn't make any sense as an argument. She talks a bit about offshoring and but like really the issue I have with this is it's coming at the issue from a completely fabricated stance. Like there's no reason to expect that of the build out of data centers would help the working class in any way, shape, or form, and or for that matter, that like access to AI models, world-class AI models. She says, let's see. Oh yeah, and then she also says data center blocking is class warfare, which is ridiculous. But what was the quote I was looking for? Oh yeah, she says a poverty premium. You can see how the latest version of the poverty premium is shaping up. A society where educated middle-class people like me will pay the monthly fees for these services, learning and moving through life with less friction, while people who can't afford the subscription are stuck in the system and end up paying more. The thing with this is already happening. Like the fees for using like the flagship model, which she says is what will like give people an edge in the world, which that's debatable. I've used the AI models as research, and I can see how they can be useful in certain instances, but I still don't really see the argument that it's like somehow going to give people like democratize code. I guess like if you want to be a coder, it might be useful, but I don't know. I think the cost is already prohibitively expensive for most people. Like, I mean, if you use an AI model in any like regular capacity, it's like at least $20 a month, and then if you use it, frequently, it's at least 50 or more. Okay, let me catch up on these comments. Kevin O'Leary. Yes, we can agree on that. Kevin O'Leary is a stain on Canada. I'm not Canadian, but yeah, one in this interview, like he says at one point, "Oh, you know that welcome to America." Oh, hey, Michael Burns, what's up, man? Good to see you popping in. Yeah. This article, I'll pop you up. Michael, actually, I got this idea to do the little overlay from your streams. I think it looks better than the chat overlay that's constantly there. But anyways, I don't even know how I got to this, but let's go back to the Tucker Carlson interview because, oh boy.
Meanwhile, the Chinese just built, in terms of new power in the last 18 months, 400 gigawatts of new power, all with coal burning turbines. Coal. You know, they're not worried about the environment. The big guy over there says, build one here and then stick a data center beside it so I can train my DeepSeek model faster. And you've heard it from the Anthropic CEO this week. He came out, the stereo guy, and said, hey, they're going to catch up in 6 months. So everybody wake up and smell what's going on here. And I started to dig in the last week, looking at all of these strings that are attacking the Utah proposal and the one I got up in Alberta. I'm going to where I can find power and developing these things. And I want the Chinese to see what we're doing. We're coming after you, buddy.
Can I ask?
One thing that I wanted to mention real quick, like, I don't know what the stat about the 40 gigawatts and that's all being coal-fired power plants, but these are the largest producing power plant facilities in the world. So this is in megawatts. For context, the data center that Kevin O'Leary is talking about is about 9 gigawatts. So that would be like around here, number 10. But look at this: hydro, solar, hydro. The only one in the top 20, I think, is, okay, maybe there's one coal here. There's also natural gas up here, but these are all clean energy. You know, hydro has its downsides. Dams can damage the environment in other ways, but nevertheless, the argument that that like coal fire fossil fuels are more efficient or better in some way to feed the data center boom. I mean, it's more realistic in the short term, which is why they're doing it. It's also cheaper in America. They're making it prohibitively impossible to do any sort of clean energy to power these things. But yeah, that's a silly point.
I've got a million questions, but let's just start with the competition between the U.S. and China on AI. If data centers are...
Yeah, just reading this comment, that's what I've seen as well. More often than not, AI-generated code is riddled with bugs and largely worthless if you aren't familiar with what you're doing. So like that's another issue with the push to get everybody using Claude Code or whatever, and basically eliminating like the junior level coders, is how are the people that are supposed to, you know, develop into you know, the next wave of AI programmers or what have you, how are they supposed to develop the skills they need to get to that position? And that's an issue with the entire, like, all these industries that AI is supposedly going to revolutionize. If, and this is a big if, but if the tech CEOs are correct that it's so revolutionary, it's going to have these knock-on effects where the people at the bottom those jobs won't exist anymore. You know, if they really wanted to create this AI utopia, I think the best thing to do is get rid of the CEO positions. Like all of that managerial bullshit, I think AI can do that better than the CEOs can do. So it's a very disingenuous argument. Yeah.
Are the key to AI. Why has China built so few of them?
Oh, no.
So I think there are about 365 data centers in China, almost 4,000 in the United States. So
yes,
clearly they haven't prevented us from building data centers. What do you think that is?
Okay, let me walk you through the math of the last, you know, this is moving very, very quickly, but the data centers of even 24 months ago were 100 megawatt facilities. And They were useful for cloud storage, like your Excel files and all the rest of that. They were useful for just basic compute and storage of data. But then when these models started emerging,
Okay, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because I don't think there's really much in the next few minutes. But then he starts going on some other bullshit.
We have a big challenge in every state. Everybody's got to build more power in the American grid right now, and the North American grid for that matter, Mexico too, and Canada.
So the older you get, you realize how is we just always glad you company. This project is totally energy independent. It takes electricity from nobody else. It creates 100% of its own power.
Yes, that's 100% correct. And that was always the proposal. And that is in the contract that we actually developed and got unanimously passed by the 3 commissioners in Box Elder, where this is the benefit. It's to the benefit of the Box Elder. 66,000 people there. They're going to get a lot of tax revenue, a lot of jobs, 10,000 construction jobs, 2,000 maintenance jobs just for the first 1.5 gigawatts. So there's a lot of economic upside. But I must tell you, and this is the first time this has happened to me, I have a pretty big team, as I'm sure you do, on social media. I'm managing a network of 12 million plus followers on different platforms, on all of them. And so about 4 hours after the vote was unanimously passed on, there was a Monday night at around 6:05 Utah time. I got a phone call from one of the people that watches our network, looks for abnormalities. And he said, there's something going on here, something very unusual on Instagram and on Twitter, which is now X. And I said, what do you mean? He said, the spiking of a bunch of IP addresses that we don't know.
Okay, he's going on about, more Chinese propaganda. He also posted this to social media, which is pretty funny. So let's look at this.
Developer of data centers on
Come
Earth.
on, go back to the beginning. Okay, whatever.
Graduated from environmental studies. So I'm pretty aware of what these concerns are. God dang it. It's like some other commentary. That clip of, I graduated with an environmental studies degree. It kind of reminds me of the Nathan For You intro where he's like, I graduated from one of Canada's top business schools with really good grades. Oh, here we go. Here's the original. Okay. I think.
How are you offsetting these environmental concerns?
Well, I'm actually the only developer of data centers on Earth that graduated from environmental studies. So I'm pretty aware of what these concerns are. They are around air, water use, heat, noise, pollution. So sustainability is at the heart of what we do in terms of all these proposals. We're not just Utah. We have 10,000 acres in Alberta, Canada, with the same concerns. And so we search for the best technology.
Okay, so yeah, sustainability. Let's talk about sustainability, which is at the heart of what they do in Utah. So this is an article from a local paper. It's about the hyperscale data could create a massive heat island near the Great Salt Lake, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with Utah. It's there's not a lot of water there. The Great Salt Lake is running dry, and this project, I think, would only exacerbate it to pretty extreme levels. Utah scientists fear the proposed Stratos project would generate enough heat to alter temperatures, strain wildlife, and intensify environmental threats around the Great Salt Lake. So they interview a physicist for this piece, Robert Davies, physics professor at Utah State. And he says, and he does some sort of calculations to sort of map out the impacts on the local community. The project's boosters say it will, this isn't what he says, this is just what the project people say. The project's boosters say it will likely need 9 gigawatts of energy at full build, more than double the electricity currently used by the entire state of Utah. That energy will likely come from natural gas pipelines. And yeah, so one of the things that he says, I believe in this video, is like, oh, well, this project could be powered by renewable energies. We could use solar, but you look at what they're actually doing. They're not using solar, they're using natural gas. And that's the common thread for all of these data center projects. They at the beginning, when they didn't realize they would need all this electricity, or maybe they did and they just were doing PR, they were saying that this will all be powered by renewable energies, yada yada, and it will bring like more projects of creating energy in renewable capacities. But at pretty much almost without exception, most of these projects are powered by fossil fuels. But like, that's not even, I don't think, that's pretty bad. But when you look at like the localized impacts, it's pretty shocking. So the physicist guy mentions that not in addition to the 9 gigawatts of energy that's needed, it will actually produce another 7 to 8 gigawatts of energy in the form of waste heat from running all of the turbines and the power plant and the computer chips themselves. So he says that makes the data complex a 16 gigawatt thermal load project, the equivalent to about 23 atom bombs worth of energy dumped into the local environment every single day. So yeah, like what are you to expect this will do to an ecosystem that is a watershed already in collapse? Utah, Colorado, all of these places the water is running dry. And then he also predicts that dumping that much heat and energy will raise local temperatures by 5 degrees Fahrenheit during the day and 28 degrees at night, which would turn Utah's semi-arid climate into essentially the Sahara Desert. Evaporation would spike, the dew point could vanish, with devastating consequences on wildlife, plants, and the fertility of land owned by other ranchers in the valley. Would become another, we could be seeing another Dust Bowl incident, to be honest, if these projects are allowed to go through. And that brings me to what they talk about next. Is these projects more often, well, I don't know about more often than not, but more often than they should be, are approved essentially without any democratic input. So the Box Elder County commissioners for this project approved the project on Monday after declining to hear public comment, noting that they had no control over environmental concerns like water supplies and air quality. This project essentially was pushed through in a very quick time frame. Who knows why? I'm guessing there were some benefits that were accrued to the people who pushed the project through. And also like this Military Installation Development Authority, I haven't had time to look into all of that, but it seems like a very sketchy organization. What else? So yeah, it would take 3,600 industrial scale generators to power Stratos, the equivalent of thousands of diesel engines idling around the clock. I mean, if you've been reading about data centers, this is not exactly news, but it's just like, it's so infuriating to see this happening to a desert where there is no water. And this is happening not only in Utah, but Arizona especially. Kirsten Sinema, the senator, I want to say, from Arizona, is all in on data centers. And yeah, so the rest of the article is that's pretty much the crux of it, but it's terrible for the environment. Okay, lots of comments coming in. He has a watch on both wrists. Yes, I noticed that too. Greenwashing stunt. Sustainability driven development would pursue sustainable power generation. Instead, they're using the literal dirtiest power source. Yeah, I know. Alberta hasn't just doubled down on coal, it has deliberately destroyed ongoing investments into renewables. It put a 6-month halt on all renewable projects in order to drive away investors. Alberta, Canada. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I know the U.S. has gone back to the well. You know, it's the Chinese century. We all know this. China is blowing everybody out of the water in terms of how much solar energy they're generating. It's really actually incredible. That is the one thing that gives me a little bit of hope about climate change. But you know, the empire needs to fall first, I think. They're doing everything they can to obfuscate the harm they are choosing to cause to make themselves even more money they'll never be able to spend. Yeah. The proposed data center in Alberta is set to consume 24 million liters of water. Yeah, I mean, these projects are everywhere, and adding on to that, like the anti-democratic nature of these things. Let me just pull up this crazy report from Kevin Nichols of the Earth Charter Indiana. So he essentially attended a data center expo in Chicago and reported on like what he heard from the people who were developing these projects, and it's pretty shocking, to say the least. So I'll skip down to what I have highlighted here. At DICE, which is the conference he went to, industry insiders discussed tactics for deceiving and manipulating communities, downplayed the environmental costs of rapid development, and peddled a fantasy that these facilities are an instrument of American freedom and dominance. Data center developers have their sights set on our communities, our water, our energy grids, and they view our objectives as inconvenient but not roadblocks. So he talks about a few things here, kind of what I've already said about, I guess I haven't touched as much on fiber internet, but yeah, they require tons of land, tons of power. The Utah project I mentioned earlier is 40,000 acres, which is, I think, double the size of Manhattan. Bonkers stuff. Data center. So he says developers know that data centers are environmentally unsustainable. Some panelists went further, even acknowledging that sustainability had taken a backseat in recent development efforts. Others spoke openly about the incompatibility of data center development with the transition to renewables. Most panelists seemed to be in agreement that the future of data center power was nuclear energy, but the only estimate I heard for when this technology might be practicable was 18 to 20 years. Until then, they have to rely on fossil fuels. You may see renewables incorporated into data center design, but even the data center developers acknowledge that these PR stunts can only generate a fraction of the power needed. Solar arrays might look great next to data centers. But yeah, the energy demands are too vast. They really do just need absurd amounts of energy. This next part, though, is what really was pretty crazy to me. So he says, perhaps the most alarming trend I observed at DICE was seeing data center developers talk with open disdain for communities in which they situate their buildings. Developers use terms like community challenged to discuss the broad public opposition to their facilities. Panelists suggested using shell companies when entering a market to avoid scrutiny, paying off neighbors of proposed data centers, working with local government to relegate protesters in out-of-sight staging areas, and facilitating youth programming/propaganda to normalize data centers in adjacent communities. One phrase I heard a lot at DICE was mission critical, a term meant to evoke the military, where development and operations must be secured at all costs. This term is used to justify the hasty site selection and design, and the mindset that all this is worth the cost of unsustainable, unchecked fossil fuel consumption. The reigning attitude of data center developers is, quote, if only the uneducated masses could understand that data centers are necessary for our freedom, they'd allow developers to run roughshod over communities and planet. Some took the military association more literally than others. When one panelist openly described applying counterinsurgency tactics he learned in active duty military service, like going undercover in bars and churches to gauge a community's potential for resistance to data center development. So pretty crazy stuff. But yeah, you see this time and time again in these projects. It's become a real issue at pretty much everywhere. Stuff makes me mad. But okay, there were some other moments in here that I wanted to get to. Let me just look at my notes. Talks about a lot about the job potential. Let's go to 120.
Or construction. And my job is to create a data center, create 2,000 jobs for long-term and 10,000 manufacturing at the beginning.
Yeah, then another thing that he keeps mentioning is like the job potential. 2,000 jobs for a data center, double the size of New York City or Manhattan. That's like that's not a pro in any respect, but he's saying that like he's going to bring all these jobs, and even the jobs that they do get, they're often like, you know, low wage sanitation type jobs. Data centers pretty much run themselves, you know. It's a fool's argument here.
Or construction. And I'm obviously looking at multiple sites, and this won't be the last one I build.
May I ask, 2,000 jobs? Okay, so relative to the physical size of the project, which, as you noted, is multiple times the size of Manhattan, and the power draw at peak, this data center, your projections, will consume about as much energy as New York City does. But New York City provides almost 5 million jobs, and this project, by your own description, would provide about 2,000 jobs. I don't see the trade here.
You definitely got that calculation wrong.
Okay,
By building a data center that trains AI, that provides productivity to the entire nation, we create millions of jobs, high-paying jobs.
So AI is going to create jobs?
Yes.
I thought it was going to eliminate jobs, net.
Just think about the new technologies we don't even know yet that are going to be built off AI. Everybody thinks when television came, everybody would lose their job in radio. That was complete BS. And the same thing is going to happen here. Everybody's hysteria about losing jobs, making hamburgers or flipping them, being replaced by a robot, that's probably true. But all kinds of new technology will become available over time, including in medical science and biology and all kinds of things where the models can be used. I'm extremely optimistic. What I'm doing is creating a whole new opportunity for my children.
What kinds of jobs? Well, I mean, again, some of this, of course, is unknowable, and I want to be as fair as I can be because I'm grateful that you're willing to talk about it so openly. But you just said this will create AI will create millions of new jobs. You're part of the basis of AI. You can't have AI without data centers, at least right now. So what are those millions of jobs? Because we can go through the list that the creators, the people who actually are making AI right now, developing it, we can go through a list of jobs they say it's going to eliminate, which would be like lawyers and financial planners and like the basis of upper middle class America. That's going away. They've said this. What will it be replaced by?
It'll be replaced by new science opportunities, new exploration into space, new manufacturing for robotics, for defense as well. Wars in the future probably aren't going to be fought with people getting shot in the flesh. It'll be one set of robots against another. I think the drone technology will advance, the manufacturing of surveillance, all that stuff against our enemies, which notably is basically China. So if you think about how, you debate the data center, I think it's fair to do that, what you're doing. But I would be very concerned if I were living in Taiwan that one day my electricity just goes out and I get invaded by basically robotics and high precision ordnance. And that's what China wants, and they want to get there first. Now, if we don't get there first, if we don't develop something better than their AI, and our ability to be predictive on where these conflicts are going to happen, I think we'll be in a bad place in 20 years. And
so Yeah. Well, you've if you've been watching with me, you've seen the constant mention of China, and you have to be terrified of China because if China gets to super intelligent AI before us, then they're gonna usher in this dystopian future where mass surveillance and your face is always being tracked. But hold on a second. Is that not the future that we are living in at the moment in modern day United States? I really don't understand the argument that like China beating us in the AI race, whatever that means to you or whoever. I don't get how that would be a worse thing than the Peter Thiels of the world getting their hands on some super powerful AI, whatever. Yeah, AI will create jobs as Meta lays off 10% of its staff through the implementation of AI agent workflows. One other interesting thing on that note, the remaining people at Meta are essentially now being surveilled and used as free labor to train their AI models, because like the AI needs essentially that's like the new Meta, not Meta the company. That's the new Meta in the AI world is like they need all of these really intelligent people to train their AIs. That's why if you guys have heard of this company Mercor, they essentially like are a shitty new platform company that you basically connects like OpenAI or Meta or Google to knowledge workers. So people with PhDs, people with really high qualifications, writers, journalists, yada yada. The idea being like if the training data, because AI has scraped the entire internet at this point, so there's really no more data. They need to generate data using like all of these knowledgeable workers, and that's supposed to create this super intelligent AI. Oh yeah, I guess you already know that. I didn't see that comment. Which is great until the AI runs into a scenario that it hasn't had testing data for and inadvertently deletes a production system to resolve a small bug that it wasn't trained on. Yeah, there's been a lot of stories of these AI agents essentially like deleting a ton of information and not backing it up anywhere. And also, AI agents are a security nightmare because people can essentially program their websites to have like hidden code that the AI can't detect, and it gets them to it pulls them in and gets them to turn over credit card information or what have you, or just data, because data is the new currency. Just look at the U.S. adoption of certain propaganda strategies. They're using the same "we are so strong" rah, while also going "we are so weak, give us subsidies, China cannot be allowed to win." Yeah, it's pretty silly. There is some other things he says that are pretty crazy towards the end. Here's a good one.
Like me out on challenges to the narrative that must have been happening back when the Model T Ford rolled off the assembly.
My focus remains, however, on is it good for the United States? Is it good for us? Does it make people happy? And I don't understand what people are going to do for a living if machines are going to be able to do most things that people currently do better than people do them. Like, what is the answer? And a lot of people are honest enough to say nothing. We're just the oligarchs are gonna send out checks to everybody, the bread and circuses, and everyone's just gonna kind of stay home and be obedient. But I don't know that is a good idea, and I don't know that it works.
I think you're raising a great point. It's a wonderful debate, and it's certainly going on, but it's analogous to the narrative that must have been happening back when the Model T Ford rolled off the assembly line, and everybody that had a buggy looked at it and said, "Oh no, this is going to wipe me out, and there'll be no work for me." the American economy is very resilient as it develops new sectors.
What happened after the Model T was rolled out? We had two big events in the, say, 40 years after
We
that.
actually had
one was the First World War and one was the Second
Right.
World War. The Industrial Revolution, like all
Right.
technological change, caused dramatic political and social change, which resulted in the biggest bloodletting in human history. So I'm like, it's worth thinking this stuff through. Like, technological change forces social
fair
and
enough,
political
but
change. Yeah.
unfortunately, capitalism and the freedom it
Here we go.
provides is volatile. And it has lots of periods, including the Great Depression, where it taxes the people that support it. But it's still better than the alternative anywhere on Earth, it seems, 200 years later.
Okay. Isn't that an insane thing to say? That the world wars, the two world wars and the Great Depression are just natural fluctuations of capitalism, and that's okay. That's still better than, Cuba, for instance. Cuba, speaking of Cuba, Cuba would be one of these places that he seems to think capitalism, there is no alternative. Cuba has succeeded despite being brutally sanctioned and embargoed and currently being literally starved. I mean, who knows if it's going to last much longer, but this argument is absolutely insane to me, that the destabilization capitalism creates, causing world wars, the most like brutal bloodshedding that we've basically seen in our history, and the Great Depression is just a natural part of life, and we have to accept that.
And so, when you start looking at the American economy and the vol it's had, it's been unbelievable. But the system, with all its faults, and you're raising some good points, I agree with you. I'm just trying to think what's the alternative. And regarding AI and the ultimate issue around your job issue, and I think it's fair. I'm looking at it differently. I'm looking at it as insurance. I would prefer, even though the future is uncertain and the outcome, and the end is always near, to quote Jim Morrison. I love that line in his song.
Roadhouse Blues.
The future is uncertain and the end is always near. Words I live by. But it's sort of, if you had to give me the two alternatives, let China do this first or us, I'll take us. And I'm part of that now. And in the controversy of it, we started our conversation. I've never seen a controversy like this. I've never seen attacks like this. I know you have, but I haven't experienced it. And I'm hiring.
Well, I mean, if you take money from taxpayers, you should expect them to weigh in too and take their complaints seriously and not just dismiss them as agents of China.
And you're right, but this has been going on. Incentives, state by state, in every sector happen, even real estate.
Not incentives. It's a forced transfer of wealth from taxpayers to people who are richer than taxpayers. So, like,
no, they're not.
Of course, they have.
You get a tax break to create 2,000 jobs, and the taxpayer wouldn't do it if it wasn't the long-term outcome.
The taxpayer has no choice. The taxpayer has no
choice. They could say no.
How exactly is a taxpayer to say no to a data center? I mean, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to use the levers of democracy to reject these things. And look what we saw in Utah for this project. Blue County commissioners approved the project Monday after declining to hear public comment, noting they had no control over environmental concerns. So it's a very, very brain-dead argument that he's making here.
That's not what happened.
Well, they tried to say no to this data center, and they got laughed at. And then the governor, Spencer Cox of Utah, who really is a kind of living symbol of our ruling class, said that the state has an obligation to do this, and basically, as you are doing, waved away concerns as like foreign propaganda, when I think they're probably non-crazy people who live in Utah are like, why is this good for me? Why should I pay for this?
It's fair. It's fair. All this is fair. How about we forget the data center and just talk about the power for a second? Because there aren't going to be any data centers in America unless we build power generation. Do you have the same visceral reaction to power generation as you do to data centers?
Inversely, I think we need more electricity in the United States. And I
Well,
think that
that's what I'm
people who
talking
are,
about. I'm
speaking
talking
of
about
agents of China, in fact, if you're looking for agents of China, it's the people who told you that you could live without fossil fuels, that babies wouldn't die without fossil fuels. Babies will die without fossil fuel. Civilization will collapse without fossil fuel. And that right there is the foreign op telling us that, you know, people are causing global climate change. People are not causing global climate change substantially. We're having.
Yeah, so it's for all the people in the chat who are rightfully saying Tucker's making some good points here. This is a good reminder, you know, that he's not on our side. Also, this conversation about power, like we need more and more power. Yes, obviously we need power to live, to power our economy, power our society. But I go back to the largest power generators in the world, and seeing that in the top 20, only 1, 2 are fossil fuel. So if we want to generate all this power, if we want to compete with China on power, which is what they're saying here, we need to fucking build renewable energy. It's really not that complicated, guys. I don't understand this.
Global climate change, as we always have, but to blame it on natural gas is just a flat out lie, and a lot of rich Americans fell for that. So no, I'm strongly for energy. I'm just very concerned about replacing people, their purpose for living, which is to create, with machines. That seems like hell to me, literally hell. So I think it's fair to ask, like, how is this not hell? And no one has been able to answer it.
Yeah, I think trying to stop advancement of technology with the uncertainty it brings has always been a dilemma in capitalism and in America. And it's a fair comment.
But how is this capitalism? If taxpayers are paying for some of it, how is that capitalism? That seems.
Oh, I think that's no different than building an apartment building downtown in Austin. You can get incentives for that too, and that's just part of how it works. You can debate
How is
that.
How is that capitalism? How is that free market? If politicians are handing you other people's money to do it, how is that capitalism?
Well, capitalism is built into the Constitution, which I think was genius because it couldn't have even thought that far ahead, was the idea of competition between states. Why is there an exodus out of New York City to Miami, where I live? Why are people leaving New Jersey and Massachusetts and moving into my building? Nobody in my building is from Florida. They're all from other states.
I understand.
And all of these people moving, why? Because they're reaching retirement age, and the environment in these other states is not conducive to their lifestyle when they're being
But I think
taxed.
you're making my point for me. You just listed states that use a higher percentage of taxpayer dollars for private industry, and people are leaving those states. Illinois.
Wait a second. New
California,
York does not.
New York.
New York is an inefficiently run.
It may be inefficient, but the principle that politicians can take the public's money and hand it to their friends in business.
Okay, so I mean, look, he's talking about tax subsidies for the data center and for tax subsidies in general here. I really don't like this argument because, well, I would make the argument in a different way. I would say that tax subsidies are right now not aligned with the social good. This giving a giant tax break to a data center that provides 2,000 jobs for a data center that's twice the size of Manhattan is a great example. But if we were to have tax breaks for affordable housing, renewable energy, food security, things like that, that's fine by me. So I'm gonna disagree here. No surprise.
That's a long-standing practice in New York, California, and Illinois, and relatively uncommon in Florida.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what is so dangerous about Tucker Carlson is he is very very sharp, and he understands the issues, and he can sense which way the wind is blowing. So he has been outspoken on this issue because he knows it's a popular issue amongst the people that are sort of veering away from Trumpism and I mean, it's a bipartisan issue. 70% of people don't support data centers. That's unprecedented numbers. Let's see if there's anything. Oh, we're talking about Israel. Okay, baby. Yeah, I don't think we have time to get into Israel, especially Tucker's point of view on that.
Florida. So people are moving to the free market state, but you're now saying that actually the beauty of capitalism is that politicians hand other people's money to their friends? That doesn't.
No,
I thought
I'm
that was
not
the
saying
opposite
that.
of capitalism.
I'm saying that that is incorrect. I didn't say that. I said
Okay.
what makes capitalism work is competition. And it does work, and it has worked for hundreds of years. And so the concept, you may not like the policy of giving incentives for manufacturers and real estate. You may not like it, and I understand you don't, but you don't have to do it. A state can stop doing it, and then for a while, maybe they'll be less competitive in terms of getting new projects. I didn't make those rules up. I'm a football player on the field of capitalism. I have to play by the rules.
I get it. No, I get it. And I'm not attacking you for it. I'm just wondering, again, occasionally it's worth pausing and asking, are we doing the right thing, even if we've been doing it the same way for a long time? I'll ask just one final question. I'll stop torturing you. But do you see how other people find it unfair that one of the richest people in America, you, in league with the biggest companies in America, Amazon, Microsoft, et cetera, the ones you listed, that the richest people in our society would be taking money from people much poorer than them? That seems very unfair.
You know, Tucker, I'll speak for myself on this. I'm not motivated by money anymore. That is not why I get up and work 18 hours a day.
Oh, brother.
I want to build something incredible. I want my legacy for my children to be something that they're honored by.
Right.
I want to compete against the Chinese. I don't like the Chinese government, in case anybody has noticed that over the last 5 years. I don't like how they treat their people. I don't like how they treat me in business. I simply don't like them. What's motivating me now with all of this barrage, this firestorm, which I understand you've experienced in the past, is I want to beat them in AI. I don't want them controlling the most advanced models, wherever that's taking us, because you bring up great points about the unknown in jobs and everything else. But I want to be part of the team that makes sure our way of life in North America remains the same for my children. I don't give a shit about money anymore. I don't need any more money.
That's very easy for a billionaire to say.
Already been very successful. I'm very lucky, but I'm not finished. I'm very motivated to win. And if people want to compete with me, I want that. If they don't think my motivation is to beat the Chinese, they're wrong. I am going to beat them. I am going to show them these data centers. They're going to be this shining example of how you do this sustainably, because I'm the only guy that is graduated out of environmental studies and builds data centers. No one else on earth has done that.
Do you think, I love the idea. I'm for America above all. Do you think that Microsoft and Amazon and Google will do a good job preserving the American way of life? Are they substantially superior morally to the Chinese government? Do you think that? Those are your tenets?
Yes, I do. And in fact, I deal with
how. Tell me how is Google?
Tell you why. I was talking with the guy yesterday that is doing the build outs all around the world for Google's data centers. They are on incredible sustainable mission. They are looking at every technology to reduce their need for traditional power sources. And, we were talking about the
also not true. Google is, this is one of the arguments. Oh God, I don't know why I choose to engage with this type of content. Google is essentially greenwashing with their sustainability reports, and a good reason or a good proof of concept that that's all bullshit. Google, Amazon, Microsoft, all of these companies have seen their emissions skyrocket I think over 30% in the past year or something like that. That stat was from 2025, I believe. But so even if, you know, they're putting a couple billion into, you know, sustainable projects or what have you, it really does not it doesn't make any sort of a dent. But, you know, it looks good on a PR release.
The campus in Utah. They have some very advanced thinking on the use of battery, wind, and solar. And so they want to do that. Why? Because their customers.
Okay, there's one last thing, and then I'll get to some of these articles. Although I've gotten to a few of them already. There's one thing towards the end that is especially.
So we merge those two together, and the benefits that accrue. For one reason, to tell the Chinese, don't fuck with us.
There he goes again.
That's basically what's going to happen, because they want to fuck with us big time. And that's my belief. And I think I'm right. I think that's what's going to happen. And
listen, the Chinese don't give a shit. They do not want to fuck with us. They want to do their little economic trades and develop their 5-year plans and make a lot of money. And they don't really, you know, maybe they'll do something about Taiwan. They don't want any business with us right now. It's so silly. I mean, we are the belligerent actors here, you know, tempting another world war. I really just hate all of the China stuff is a distraction. Let's just be clear about that. It's a distraction from the many deteriorations of our quality of life, of the ways that AI is being used against us. When, you know, say what you will about China, but it's just the technology that they use. It's not like the same level of creating
AI
these sorts of wealth gaps. Anyways,
and compute and all this stuff, that's a side story. We have to keep all of our tech ahead of theirs, including data centers and everything else. But ultimately, they are our adversary on our way of life.
Then can I ask, our way of life, right? So I would think, since you disagree with the Chinese way of life, which is pretty civilized in a lot.
This is actually another good Tucker point. Yeah, you hate to hand it to him, but he's kind of cooking, you know.
A lot of ways, but the one way in which it's barbaric is that it grants its citizens no real rights.
I'm not talking about that part.
I would think that you would be very worried about aping their system, which we are now doing. Like, they have total surveillance. It's panopticon in China. We should create our own. Let's take 40,000 acres in Utah and make it possible for the government to know where you are at all times and what you're thinking, listening to you on your phone. Like, we have that.
But
I think you'd be upset about
you
that.
You have to choose the less of two evils in your scenario. And I'm telling you, what you should do is say, I want Kevin O'Leary to succeed. I want him to beat the Chinese in compute power. And then use the laws of the United States to make sure that you keep that compute power in check whichever way you want. But to not have it available, to put
God, I really can't. I would love the one thing that I think about, the one thing that keeps me up at night is Kevin O'Leary going to succeed? I want him to create AI utopia for all of us, because I trust that he's going to do what's right. And yeah, I mean, the point about China being, you know, that is a valid critique that I share of China, is the surveillance and the facial recognition, the censorship. I mean, some of the censorship arguments are a little less valid, but like the surveillance for sure. But when people say that, it's like, bro, have you been living under a rock? Do you not see that we are building the exact surveillance society that you tell us to be terrified of? Come on.
Down my shovel. I don't think people want me to do that. Even the people in Box Elder, the majority of them want me to hold my shovel and start digging. And that's basically the debate we're having.
How do you know that the majority?
Because they voted for it unanimously before the Chinese guys
There was a
people
referendum?
dispatch,
Did they?
like all this crap that's being spewed out. in the
Wait,
last
so hold
48
on.
hours.
Yeah, and I may have fallen for some of it, so you correct me. There was a referendum among citizens, or did some like county board vote?
We actually went through the whole process that you have to do by their laws, and were granted 3-0. The commissioners of the county saunted, we want to
so
be
three
part of this.
people voted. The people of the
They're
county.
elected
didn't vote.
officials. That's how you do it. There's
How
no other
hard
way
is
to
it
do it.
for Kevin O'Leary and Amazon and Microsoft and Google to subvert
Yes,
three county
yes.
commissioners in rural Utah?
Tucker,
Pretty tough.
they asked us to come. They asked us to bring $15 billion. They asked and they voted, and it was a 3-0 vote. That's
Right,
how
you
it
got
got done. There's no other way to
Amazon,
do
Google,
it.
and Kevin O'Leary got three county commissioners in rural Utah on their side. Good work. But can I just ask you really quick, like, why don't
What a crazy guy. I mean, seriously, like we got unanimous approval. Yeah. Unanimous approval. 3-0. Yeah. Really, really good stuff. Honestly, I mean, look, pretty good performance here by Tucker Carlson, I gotta say.
you have a referendum? Why don't you let all citizens, all taxpayers, the ones who are paying for your project, why don't they get to pay or vote?
Well, listen, the whole idea of expediting it was so the project didn't go to Jacksonville, Mississippi. That's the competition. And so the government there said, okay, look, we've done because we haven't lost our we have to go through EPA. We have to go through air and quality. We have to go through the water permitting. We have to go through the land construction permitting.
Okay, I think if I listen to any more of this fucking ghoul, I'm going to lose my mind. There's a lot of discourse going on online. I went through some of this Jacobin article, but I do want to just dispel with some of these notions once and for all, because here's another thing. This Jacobin article, again, Socialist Magazine, one of the most influential in the country, it shares a lot of the same points as this Washington Post article. Don't forget who wins in the fight against data centers. Bipartisan efforts to stop the build out of AI will make AI accessible only to the wealthy. So this headline and the article as a whole is saying basically the wealthy are the ones that are going to profit but only if we stop the data centers. And that's a really interesting argument. I wonder who is making that argument. Anthony Beck is the head of AI implementation at Palantir, and the co-author is the head of government affairs at Palantir. So this Socialist Magazine is making the same argument. The surest way to guarantee that artificial intelligence becomes a tool of the wealthy elite is to block the infrastructure that would make it cheap for everyone else. That I really love when rich people tell me what is good for the working class. That is just, I really, you can tell their heart's in the right place. So, she basically says a lot of this same stuff. Doesn't really say how AI is going to benefit the most vulnerable, the poorest of us, disadvantaged communities. She just kind of, I guess, wants us to take her word for it. The irony is that a lot of the organizing to stop data centers is coming from wealthier communities and groups who tend to have greater power to organize. It's true. We lack rigorous study of this. So she's just making things up. Like, what are you talking about? You know, she doesn't provide any proof. She doesn't say that she even went to meetings. Just because some of the data centers are in affluent suburbs, that doesn't mean that the broader movement is all powered by wealthier communities. It's honestly, it's so condescending. It makes me a little angry coming from a socialist. Yeah, exactly. The wealthy elite already have AI, and we see how they use it. It's it's that argument that if AI gets to this certain point, well, then it's going to benefit the working class, then it's going to produce all of this democratization. And that falls awfully flat when you see how it's being used right now. Then she goes on to talk about how it's a class war. The class particulars matter. What if, so she's just asking the question, what if the picture emerges that data center resistance is one of educated middle-class people, including exurban and rural residents, but also professionals who work in knowledge jobs, mobilizing consciously or not to protect their class positions from the threat AI poses? That's just not what's happening on the ground. I've been to data center organizing meetings. I can tell you it's the communities, it's the people that live there. Shocker, like she's making a lot of the same points as Kevin O'Leary talking about paid protesters, except she's just saying they're, rich people, rich environmentalists and property owners. And then she says it's not fair to allow these affluent people to try to stop development of this infrastructure before most people in the world have even had a chance to work with and learn from these models. It's clear that for many subjects, now she's talking about school, because AI is definitely going to be great for all of the students. We're going to be able to supercharge our intelligence by asking ChatGPT to write essays for us and offloading our creativity and critical thinking to the machines. That's going to go super well. I agree. It's clear that for many subjects, the personalized tutoring offered by AI is far better than the outdated lecture-based model still employed by universities. And she says that she took some undergrad courses. I mean, look, I'm willing to hear some criticisms of the education system, but like, get real, man. Personalized AI tutoring that's going to hallucinate the wrong answers and teach you to rely on it is going to help you become a better student. What are you talking about? I already talked about this poverty premium. But it's, like I said earlier, it's already a thing. Like it's already too expensive for the majority of people to use. And why would they, for the majority of people, it's not able at the moment to really produce. I mean, I guess I can only speak for like the ways that I've attempted to use it as research. Don't come for me. I have to stay up to date. I cover technology, but it's I don't know. So then she says, part of why the moratorium push is such a dead end is because of the disparate left-right coalitions that have emerged around stopping data centers, people who have different interests when it comes to other issues. It doesn't follow that stopping data centers will lead us to clean energy build out or the social policies needed to address job displacement, such as healthcare for all. I mean, it really is it makes me think that this person has never done any organizing, because that is what it is. Like it is disparate left-right coalitions. That is what you need to do to win battles. You're not going to agree with every person that you work with on healthcare and job displacement. I mean, that's such a silly argument. That these coalitions are going to diverge on other issues. It's the fight is against data centers right now. It can turn into other things, and you can build relationships and maybe change people's minds, but you're not going to agree with everybody. That's just the way the world works. Take a walk outside, go to an organizing meeting, do some fucking research before you make these bullshit claims. Okay. Is there anything else? Let's read a couple more paragraphs here. As policy advocate Nat Purser has already argued in Asterisk, a pause is not an actual substitute. Okay. Yes. I agree with. It's not, but that's the thing. It's not supposed to be a solution to everything. It's not supposed to solve all of our problems around AI. It's supposed to be a point of leverage that we can use against the people who are pushing for these data centers. So we're not going to, I support democratic governance of AI too, but you're not going to get democratic governance of AI if these corrupt county commissioners are pushing through projects with no public input. Rather than gather progressive momentum for deep multi-issue social reform, populist anger, like reducing it to populist anger is in this like dismissive way is really, and conspiratorial para-environmentalist politics rife with concerns about electoral, like what are you talking about? Why do you think that people resisting data centers are going to turn conspiratorial? And then like violent, I mean, yeah, there probably is going to be some more violence because nobody is being heard, because democracy isn't working. That's how history works. Read a book. All right. Well, I don't know if you left, Austin, but thanks for stopping in. Lectures are bad for learning. Yeah, but the solution isn't complete. AI isn't the only solution here. Complete rewrite of. Yeah, I mean, look, I am not an expert on education. I did teach for a year, but I taught in Hong Kong, which was a little bit more functional, let's say. I've been pondering how to design open source infrasound detector so that people can start taking measurements and quantifying the harms and impacts to their communities. Yeah, that's really cool. I would encourage that. There have been some people that have like done some investigations into the sound and the noise pollution and the environmental harms from that. Mobile app. Yeah, go for it. Go exchange info. Go off and do it. Okay, let's keep going. An epistemic environment shaped by alarmist claims carries real risks for people's health and well-being. Like, what is alarmist? What is alarmist about pointing out the ways that data centers are harming communities and creating all of this pollution and killing the environment and making driving species to extinction? Why is that alarmist? I feel like you're not alarmed enough, You should be alarmed. Rather than embrace apocalyptic... It's not apocalyptic rhetoric. Jesus Christ. Like, this is the apocalypse. Yes, there is apocalypse rhetoric. That's being pushed by the same people who want you to buy into the hype that AI is leading to a jobs apocalypse, or that it's going to become super powerful and destroy humanity. That's not the arguments that are being made here. We are concerned with real material conditions. You should know this. We need to be clear-eyed about the real problems data center build-out poses, because they are mounting. Making progress on the myriad issues packaged under AI is going to require separate work streams. What about the climate? We need clean power to decarbon. We of course need clean power. The emissions and energy draw are real issues, but they need to be placed within the bigger picture of our climate challenge. Of the United States' 6 billion or so tons of greenhouse gas emissions, around 76 million tons are from data centers. Data centers for AI specifically are projected to account for roughly 24 to 44 million tons of CO2. Because they're not connected to the grid. The good news is that it is easier to decarbonize AI than heavy industry. The fact that companies are desperate for power can potentially be leveraged to get them to finance some of the build out that we'd need for decarbonization. Holly, ma'am, I'm sure you are a professor, and I'm sure you've done a lot of research into things. But this is what the data center moratorium is about. It's about leverage. It's about, like, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create leverage for them to finance. Yeah, like this is a sound proposal. Get them to finance some of the grid build out with renewable energies. And she says there's proliferation of state legislation on data centers. Like, yes, all of these are good policies, but like they don't have to be exclusive. It doesn't have to be something that is just these policies. Like the data center moratorium can work in conjuncture, and it can give us leverage, which we desperately need. I don't know if you've noticed, but the billionaires and the oligarchs have the leverage here. That's why but all that being said, like there has been, I think, over 50% of data center projects were canceled in 2025. So like people are winning, people are losing also. Okay. People, I'm just looking at the chat. Well, you guys sound like you're having your own conversation. So, Godspeed. Let's keep going. What about water use? This is a water resource management problem. Google's global data center operations consumed 8.1 billion gallons in 2024, or as much as it would take to irrigate 54 golf courses on average. Though the majority of Google's data centers are in places where water is abundant, where water is not scarce, states can oversee. Yeah, so I think you guys get the idea of this argument. Like she I'm not saying like any of these proposals are not good ideas. Yeah, we do need concrete legislative measures, but that doesn't have to come at the expense of the people who are organizing to stop the data center build out. It can work in tandem with it, you know? Okay, what else do we got? Okay, we'll go with some good takes on all of this because my blood pressure is too high right now. So this is a great piece by Astra Taylor and Saul Levin. I'm not actually too familiar with Saul Levin, but Astra Taylor is the founder of the Debt Collective, and she's an organizer and writer, and she's been doing a lot of good work around the data center resistance. So she says claims of NIMBYism. So basically, the disagreement that I share with this Jacobin piece is not the headline. Democratic governments of AI is the real solution. Well, I guess I disagree that like it is implying that it's sort of the only solution, or that like, well, I mean, we just read the article, so we don't need to get into it again. But Astra Taylor and Saul Levin are saying, yeah, it is about democracy, but it's also about, AI is like the sort of new signifier of capitalism. So, and capitalism in its current form is anti-democratic. So they say claims of NIMBYism are a misunderstanding. The movement is about whether regular people have a say in fundamental decisions. Yeah. Since the surreal scene at the 2024 presidential inauguration, when a row of big tech titans took their VIP seats and signaled their new alliance with MAGA, the Trump administration has rolled out the red carpet for Silicon Valley's AI ambitions. Billions in lucrative federal subsidies and contracts to the cash-rich sector, bloating the AI bubble that many experts warn may imperil the entire economy while prohibiting any guardrails on the fast-moving technology. Fortunately for us, an unlikely and unruly coalition has emerged to resist the AI takeover by taking aim at the industry's core infrastructure. In 2025, 48 data center projects worth an estimated $156 billion were blocked or stalled by local opposition. By all measures, 2026 is shaping up to be an even bigger year. So in our view, that's a good thing. Like, this is the difference between an organizer and an academic who must not have enough organizing experience. Unlikely and unruly coalition is not a bad thing. That's what we need. We need more unlikely and unruly coalitions. This is really an issue that is a winning message. This is why I'm again mad at the Democrats, because they're not taking advantage of this. This is a slam dunk. Bernie and AOC introduced the data center moratorium. I have seen very few Democrats come out in vocal support of it. So, it's going to be a flashpoint in the next few years, in the midterms, surely in 2028. And it really like makes me mad to see Tucker Carlson doing a better job talking about the downsides and actually criticizing the people who are in charge of this. So yeah, she said, or they say, but as the anti-data center movement has grown, it's come under fire from all sides, including liberal critics who dismiss it as another privileged form of NIMBY, not in my backyard politics, with naive demands. A New York Times op-ed, for example, called the fight against data centers a myopic distraction. Myopic means lacking imagination, foresight, or intellectual insight. It's short-sightedness. I don't think that's true. And it's, distraction from the real fight. In truth, the anti-data center organizing is the real fight, one centered on an industry choke point that people can reach out and touch. This brewing populist resistance isn't just about limiting local development. It represents a critical new front in the fight against tech-enabled authoritarianism. Where else can people push back on job-eating algorithms, distorting deepfakes, and autonomous drone strikes? So what she's getting at here is an important point to keep in mind, that we don't really have an avenue to fight back or even like resist or reject these technologies and the negative impacts they have. There is no opt-out. Their AI is here whether you like it or not, and some people are forced to use it for their jobs. Some people have deepfakes made of them without consent, and of course the impacts on the Iran war. Bernie. Okay, here's the thing about Bernie. Yes, I agree that he is like the data center moratorium is a good piece of legislation. I support it. I like what he's doing on that front. He also, as it happens, is getting advice from eugenicist freaks like Eliezer Yudkowsky. If you saw my video on AI and eugenics, you'll remember that fucking weirdo. And so Bernie is a little bit bought into like the doomer aspect of it. For my taste, I think like he could do a better job talking about the sort of more mundane harms. That being said, I'll take my anti-AI resistance where I can get it. So yeah, keep going, Bernie, but maybe have your team like find some people that actually know what they're talking about. Talk to the Distributed AI Research Institute. Talk to AI Now. Don't fucking talk to Eliezer Yudkowsky and the what is his organization called? Machine Intelligence Research Institute. They're a bunch of freaks. Okay. So they're calling it a distraction, but it's not a distraction. That's where the real fight is. That's the only place where we have any sort of leverage or any sort of movement. So yeah, from rural North Carolina to suburban Virginia to the foothills and farmlands of New Mexico and Oregon, ordinary people are coming together across partisan divides to say no to a status quo that allows tech lobbyists to ram through data center deals at a breathtaking clip, often behind the veil of secrecy enforced by NDAs. They also, okay, here's another interesting article I read today. Township leader resigns in tears over OpenAI data center death threats. So, look, I don't think anybody should be getting death threats. And honestly, like I do feel for the woman or whomever it was, because essentially, like, let me see if I can find the piece where it explains what she resigned about. Well, she was getting death threats because see, I didn't do any highlights here. It's very okay. So, anyways, I'm not going to be able to come up with whatever it was on the spot. But basically, the town leaders of this place were essentially forced into signing NDAs and like bullied with threats of lawsuits by the massive corporations. And like these people don't have the resources, like, you know, Google, Microsoft, whoever it was, they can fucking bury these people. So, you know, they should be like, there should be accountability, and definitely like they should have, especially in instances like that Utah where they basically refused to hear public comment. Like that shit's not okay. But, you know, don't be giving people death threats, guys. That's not cool, obviously. In Deep Red, Indiana, more than 10 countries have enacted moratoriums or temporary bans. The Seminole Nation in Oklahoma recently passed a moratorium for their territory, and across New Jersey, project after project has been canceled due to local fury about the raw deals on offer. And yet, instead of lending their support to the cause, people who should be allies are using their platforms to issue misguided critiques. We just talked about this Jacobin piece, but yeah, like I said, echoes a lot of what the Palantir op-ed was saying, that slowing down would only hurt the working class, which is, you know, crock of shit. What else do we have? Yeah, so this is an antitrust expert, Zephyr Teachout, says, if you want democratic governance of AI, block data centers. Google's not coming to any democratic table, not listening to any rules without people showing force. Data centers offer a strategic target in other ways. Like the internet, AI is everywhere and nowhere. Data centers provide a physical place and a focal point where people can show up and directly confront our out of control and otherwise impossible to reach tech billionaires. Yeah, she says for critics like Buck, the movement's ideological diversity is a weakness. But as we just discussed, that's how politics works. As we've seen firsthand in our organizing and reporting, the anti-data center movement centers on an array of shared concerns: crushing utility bills, unsustainable energy and water consumption, noise and light pollution, soil degradation, and a lack of good jobs. Not to mention the prospect of society-wide job apocalypse and unchecked corporate power. Man, when you put it like that, in addition to all of these socially problematic uses of generative AI, from bots angling to undressed teenagers to the slop choking our social media feeds. Another thing I'll say on like the coalition building front, there's a lot of and this is sort of a broader point about politics right now, is that there are a lot of people who've been fed misinformation by Fox News or Trump or whatever. Like, it's not really helpful to immediately disregard working with somebody because you have disagreements with them politically. Like, that is sort of what we need more of. We're very isolated. We're very atomized at the moment as political individuals. That is the great failing of liberal capitalism, is it turns us into individuals who have no collective will to impact the systems that are harming us. So like, I just really don't like any of these criticisms about like people who are just wanting to stop data centers from harming their community and their neighbors. So I think I've went through most of what I wanted to go through. Let's just take one last look. We can watch this More Perfect Union thing real quick. This was a little short video about...
Q&A is between us and you! False authority! False authority!
On Monday, hundreds of angry residents came out to express their opposition to Kevin O'Leary's proposed data center in Box Elder County, Utah, only to be told commissioners weren't taking comments.
Why won't they let people talk? Why won't they let us ask questions? From now on, I will tell you, you continue. I have law enforcement here who will remove you from the meeting.
Fed up with the resident uprising, the commissioners left the room to conduct the meeting virtually and promptly approved the project.
I would move for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion we approve Resolution 2612.
I don't know. Looks like a bunch of wealthy environmentalists and whatever the fuck she said that they were.
At 40,000 acres, it would be the largest data center in the world, consuming more power than the entire state of Utah.
I'm actually here to support good governance, which this wasn't. We actually have a 5-year review process for this kind of stuff in the past. This was pushed through in 5 months.
This data center would just mean more suffering for me and everybody else that lives here while a couple of rich jerks line their pockets.
It's my understanding that the guy that is behind all of this is from Canada. I don't understand why Utah is letting a Canada company come in and take advantage of us.
The biggest concerns really are about water usage, broad environmental impacts, and then the fact that the state is basically giving an out-of-country developer a tax break. We're subsidizing corporate profit with public resources, and I'm just not okay with that.
They're going to poison our air, and they're going to create a heat island that's not going to be good for us either. We're already in the middle of a terrible drought.
Residents are also concerned that the data center could drain water from the Great Salt Lake, which is already suffering from declining water levels.
It's important that we place this within the community, that we place it within the scientists who know how this will affect the Great Salt Lake, not in bureaucrats down at the Capitol.
Why do they think that they can do the studies afterwards when everybody else has to do studies beforehand?
We already have 53% of the lake bed exposed, and that lake bed is toxic.
They're using water for this system, water that we need in this state. I have survived for 68 years without AI. I have no need for AI.
This is not for the good of the people here. This is for the good of some out-of-town big shots who want to make themselves richer than they already are, even though they already have more money than they know what to do with, at our expense.
We are going to do something about it today, and we're going to do something about it tomorrow, and we're going to do something about it every day until people realize that our communities matter more than corporate profit.
I had to switch. I just noticed, I hope that wasn't the case for a long time, but my camera seems to have died, so I'm back to the webcam. I saw a comment I wanted to. So, oh shoot, I don't have my little. 1 second. Please hold. Okay, that's not it. Hold on a sec. Okay, copy. Okay. So Maddie says, why the heck do they sign NDAs? So let's read that article because that will probably be able to explain it better than I could. And then that's going to be the last thing for this stream. We've been going for damn near 2 hours. I had a lot to say, guys, you know. NDA. Here we go. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Hold on. Okay, so here we go. I haven't read this article, so this will be interesting for me. How NDAs keep AI data center details hidden from Americans. Big tech companies use secrecy agreements with local governments to keep communities from knowing who is building in their backyards. So, on a March afternoon in Mason County, Kentucky, Dr. Timothy Grosser and his son Andy sat across the table from 3 men who came out with an offer: $10 million for the 250-acre farm where they lived and worked for nearly 4 decades. That's 35 times what Grosser bought his land for in 1988, and significantly more than what others in the area had sold their land for recently. But there was a catch. It wasn't clear who was funding the offer. One of the men said he represented a Fortune 100 company that wanted property for industrial development, but refused to say what kind, which company, or even his own name. Instead, he pulled out a non-disclosure agreement. Grosser said the contract would prevent him from discussing the project's details with any third parties in exchange for limited information about its purpose, timeline, and size. It didn't disclose the company's name, which could be discussed only after the company publicly announced its participation in the project. We refused to sign it. I'm not selling my farm for any amount of money. So it sounds like they're being told they will only the deal would only go through if they sign this NDA. I don't know why I needed to summarize what we just read, but yeah. 5 months after Grosser turned them down, local officials said at a public meeting that Mason County was being scouted as a location for a new data center. Grosser experienced firsthand what has become a common but controversial aspect of the multi-million-dollar data center boom fueled by artificial intelligence services. Major tech companies launching the huge projects across the country are asking land sellers to public officials to sign NDAs to limit discussions about the details of the project in exchange for morsels of information and the potential of economic lifelines for their communities. It often leaves neighbors searching for answers about the futures of their communities. The construction of such hyperscale data centers, giant facilities that house servers and computing resources, is booming nationwide. President Trump's AI action plan and other executive orders have recently facilitated their speedy approval, in part by loosening environmental regulations from clean air and water laws. Hundreds of projects were announced last year, touted by developers and many local officials as economic boosts to the local economies. So those in the data center argue that NDAs serve a particular purpose, ensuring that their competitors aren't able to access information about their strategies and planned projects before they're announced. And NDAs are common in many types of economic development deals aside from data centers. But as the facilities have spread into the suburbs and farmland, they've drawn pushback from dozens of communities concerned about how they could upend daily life. Data centers often draw enormous amounts of water and electricity, causing residents to complain about rising water bills and rising power bills and water shortages. We know all of this. The South Memphis, that's a rough one. There's a good More Perfect Union video about Elon Musk's XAI Colossus data center that's literally poisoning the community that lives there. It's pretty fucked. The confidentiality of the project has only added to the level of concern. Let's skip ahead a little bit. Yeah, so I mean, it's basically a product of the race to build these out as quickly as possible. Homeskillet has some ironclad principles. Yeah, shout out to that guy. In Mason County, 20 residents were offered deals, thousands of acres in total, significantly above market value. 18 of them signed property purchase contracts with the unknown company, agreeing to sell if the project proceeds. This Huddleston family, whose relatives have lived on the same property for more than 150 years, said they signed a property purchase contract with the county's Industrial Development Authority for $60,000 per acre. When they learned from their neighbors that the land would be used for a data center, they asked McHugh for a legal release to absolve them of the contract and the confidentiality clause associated with it. So it sounds to me like the NDA's purpose is because these data center projects are so unpopular, they can only get through if people don't know what they're signing over their land for. That's, reading between the lines of what they're saying here. The neighbors didn't want to be sold out, and my mom and I agree with them. If it's artificial intelligence, I don't want it anywhere near me at all. Huddleston said she was concerned about noise pollution and groundwater contamination that could come with the project. McHugh wishes that he could be more transparent about what's happening, but worries controversy could scare away opportunity. Who is McHugh? Is that the director of, okay, the person who's administering the deals. Don't know if I trust him. If I could go and get a megaphone downtown and say everything I know about this project, I would. You know what's going to happen if I do that? Then everybody in the county is going to put it on Facebook. They're going to put it out on there, and then it becomes a huge mess. Companies don't want to deal with that. Yeah, so dozens of residents say the lack of transparency is unacceptable. A 1,500-member Facebook group collected more than 500 signatures from a county of 16,000 people who believe the project poses a threat to their quality of life because of its potential to pollute the area with noise and contaminants. McHugh said the developer hopes to amend the county's zoning laws to make way for the project. Yeah, that's another thing you see a lot of is rezoning to basically get around laws and regulations. It's just destroying trust in the government, said Max Moran, the resident who started the Facebook group. People who feel let down are kind of betrayed because if you ask what's going on, then how can you trust anything they say? McHugh, the guy who's facilitating the deals, revealed in a budgetary meeting that Mason County was part of a global selection process and that the project would include a single-story data center buildings and office space. That has fueled frustration from some residents, like this woman who lives across the road from a landowner who agreed to sell his property for the project. She filed public records requests for impact studies. Skipping ahead, the secrecy can backfire. So, yeah, I mean, so basically, the NDA's purpose is to hide what's really going on, and because if essentially if the community got wind of a data center development, there would be more pushback. So it's a tool that they have in their tool shed, tool shed, either one, to essentially get rid of any potential for opposition from the community. Okay, I'm going to call it here. You can go read this rest of this article, but I'm getting tired, man. These streaming is a little bit tiring. But thank you guys for hopping in. That was fun. It was good for me to do some offloading. Not offloading. It was good for me to do some venting. I watched that Kevin O'Leary video and I'm like, oh my God, this is making me mad. I gotta tell someone about it. So, anything else in the chat? Doesn't look like there's been much recently, but yeah, hey, go for the No AI Day. I'll participate. I do that most days. Yeah, so right. Death threats. Okay. This is all old. Okay. Thank you everybody again for jumping in. There will be some news on the channel in the future. Like I said, podcast coming soon. bloodinthemachine.com. Go check it out. You'll see the updates there. That's not my blog, but that's who I'm working on the podcast with. And that's going to do it. So peace and love, y'all.